Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Okay, we're going to get into this. I'm excited about this. I listened back to his album today when I was working, and I absolutely love this album. So let's get started here. So my guest today is Nate Armbruster. He has been performing stand-up since he could drive. He's worked with people like Mark Norman, Nikki Glazer, TJ Miller, and his new album, Sorry to Bother You, is available for purchase on Apple Music, and you can also stream it in different places too. I actually listened on YouTube because it was easier for me to do on YouTube. It's funny from front to back. I got favorites that I wrote down. I want to talk to him about it. But he also has a newer podcast. It's not super new. That's called Weekend Up, Nate. And I've been listening to that since I booked him. And really, really good podcast because you get a little bit of inside the comedy life along with the weird news. And I really like what he puts together there. And it's not like super long. He doesn't, some of these folks can go on for 3 hours. His are normally like a half hour. But yeah, he's doing some really great stuff. And I am stoked to talk to him. It is Nate Armbruster. Nate.
Hey.
How you doing?
Thanks for that. Good. Thanks for that great intro.
Yeah. As bad of a mood as I'm in, I really enjoy listening to your album. I listened 3 times through. And
dude, that's amazing.
All the way back through again today. And, I took notes and just, there's some jokes in there that hit me so hard and so good. And you know what it's like between listening to a album and being there. It's different. Yeah. And as somebody who watches a lot of comedy, listens to comedy, and performs comedy, it's hard to get in the moment. You're kind of analyzing jokes and stuff like that. But there was a couple of them that just totally blew me away.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. I don't think not even my closest friends who listened to it were that. Yeah. I mean, they were like, yeah, we liked it. But, someone who I'm assuming first time you've listened to my material, I would, as far as first impressions go, that I appreciate it.
Yeah. It was really good. And I've been following you on Instagram forever. And, I see some of the stuff you put up and I saw some stuff on YouTube, but the way you put this together, I mean, it's a good package. It all works together. It all fits with the personality that I think is behind it. And I thought it went well. Let me ask you, okay, so that album's it's close to an hour. How much time do you have in putting that together?
You mean like material wise?
Yeah, material wise. And then I kind of want to talk into the nuts and bolts of putting an album out too.
Production of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that particular set actually is kind of interesting how it all came together. I'm like kind of like an audio guy. Like I like recording. Like I've produced other albums for comics who, didn't know how to mic the room up and things like that. So I've recorded maybe, hundreds of shows of mine, just kind of tinkering with like audio stuff. And I could never get a set that I was comfortable putting out, because it's either like, oh, this joke, I did this wrong, or it didn't get the response it should have gotten. And maybe there's just a better venue for it. Like maybe I can do it at another club and get a better set recorded. Mm-hmm. So after doing that 100 times and then realizing, I'm never going to have like, I guess the perfect show. You're always going to find something wrong with it. There's things on this one that I was like, it's as close as it's going to be to really good.
Yeah.
In my opinion, where I'm like, I could do this for 10 more years and I'll still be doing the same jokes because I'm just like, oh, it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
So finally I reached out to Zanies in Chicago where I live, and it's a great comedy club. If you've never been, you should definitely go. It's probably one of the oldest in the country. I think it's like they've been open for over 40 years now, and it seats like 100, just over 100 people. It's a little tiny place, and it's just when you walk in, I mean, headshots from the floor to the ceiling of just everyone who's been there, and any comic you've heard of has at least been there once. And they let me do a Sunday night show there, and that was one take what I put out.
Okay.
That was one show. So in my head, I was like, well, this will be the best opportunity at this like legendary comedy club, and so I have a lot of friends in town too that I can like. So I was able to sell it out, and I did maybe like 55 minutes, I think, before editing. And I cut out a lot because, I got distracted a little bit at one point in the show. Like somebody got up and I'd like talk to them for a second. And it's just stuff that it wouldn't translate to audio.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I cut all that stuff out, and then maybe a couple jokes that I was just like, nah, I'll just leave this out. And it came out to about 43 minutes, I think, the final album.
Uh-huh.
And then the production of it was just, Zanies makes it real easy too, because they have a lot of it already set up for you.
Yeah, they've got like the mics and the cameras already there, right? So you basically get pretty much a first draft that all you have to do is go through and edit and put your tracks together. Yep.
And I did all the editing myself too. So I basically gave them an SD card, and they sent me the audio, you know, and each microphone. So we had like 4 mics in the ceiling for the audience, and then my microphone, all recorded separately on different tracks. And then, you can, say somebody's coughing under one of them, you can edit, you can do like specific edits and stuff.
Yes. The more tracks, the better. I've learned that.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, my thing, especially because that night, I don't get to do that a lot, like headline like a club like Zanies. And I mean, it's kind of like a few and far between. Most of the rooms that I headlined are kind of just not shows you would want to record.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah.
So when I was like, okay, they're going to give me one night to do this, I only get one show. Oftentimes you can record like 5 in a weekend. I think the last time I did something where I was like, okay, I'm going to record the whole weekend. I was featuring, so I was doing like 25 minutes a night or per show, and we did 5 shows. So I did different sets each show of all this different material. But that night it was like, okay, I get one chance to do all these jokes. So, I got to do it right, and I got to make sure it's recorded. There can't be one issue with it, right? So, I was like, record everything from every angle, however, and then it's like, just to make sure it's at least on tape, that was my goal that night. Because nothing's worse than finding out like the SD card was full when you get off stage, and that also sucks.
Yeah. Now, as far as material goes, that's when you think what it takes to put an hour together, or 43 minutes, whatever it is, when you think what that takes, how much blood, sweat, and tears and time do you think you have in that album?
Ooh, I mean, I did my first open mic in 2008, and I was 16 years old. So this first few years, I try to not count because I wasn't getting up every night. It was like every couple of months thing because I was a kid. But ever since then, I mean, there's a couple of jokes, I mean, that are at least like that I recorded that are like 10 years old, and there was some stuff that once I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and do everything that I think is funny that I've ever thought of. So I was like, I'm just going to do every single joke. And then it's like, if one bombs, I can just cut it out. But yeah, I mean, I would say a decade's worth of just, doing shows and all that.
Yeah.
Most of that is just an accumulation of all of it. Some of that stuff I did that night. Like it was like an idea. I was like, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there, and it worked. And then some of those jokes are, I mean, older than I care to admit, but you want a record of it if it's a joke you like. And I liked all of the jokes that I recorded. So I was like, man, I haven't done this one in maybe 5 years, but why not, just do it that night. And then if it works, I'll keep it,
So I could tell that you liked your material, that you were confident in it, but it didn't seem like some of that was something you hadn't said for 5 years. It seemed, seemed like it was all, current.
Good. That's a good sign then, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a couple of those jokes, were maybe five years ago was the last time I told it. So maybe it's older than 5 years. And then I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. I started going back and listening to old sets, and I was like, somewhere along the line, a couple of those jokes fell off. I just don't do them on the road or anything. I kind of outgrew them, I guess, but I thought they were still good jokes. So I dusted them off, and a couple of them went well. And I was like, all right, I'll just leave that on there, because, length kind of, you want it to be, as an unknown comic, someone who's not exactly like, I don't really have like a big audience, especially online. So it's like, that's where the most people are going to see it and hear it. So in my head, I was like, this is going to be a lot of people's first impression of my stand-up. So an hour seems like a lot to ask a stranger to give you, You know what I'm saying? Like a Netflix special from, let's say Tom Papa, for example. People are looking forward to that whole hour. They're going to watch the whole thing.
Right,
but some guy who puts out an album, just Nate Armbruster, they're like, who's this? And if they like it, it's great. Hopefully they follow me and, watch for other stuff that I put out. But I feel like 45 minutes is like that sweet spot. I think.
Yeah. And it was perfect for me. And it like I said, it just seemed cohesive. And I gotta say, one of my favorite jokes I've heard in a long time was the paper or plastic one.
Hey, thanks, man.
How old's that one?
Oh, that's old.
Is it?
That's old. Probably. That was one that was probably one of my first like jokes that I was like, oh, I'm closing on this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was probably the first joke I wrote that I was like, this works, that I was actually excited to tell. And then it's like, that would be then it would become the one where like, okay, I'm doing this. Once you start headlining a little bit and you got to do more time, you kind of fill the rest of the time with at least my strategy would be like, okay, I'm doing everything that I'm doing right now, like that I'm on the road doing. And then it's like, I need more time. I'll go back into the files.
Yeah.
And that's one of those jokes, but I like that joke. I always got a kick out of it. And yeah, so I was like, I got to have that on there. And it's also like, it's good. It's very punchy for me.
Yeah. And it's like the perfect joke. And there are so many paper or plastic jokes out there, but yours is personal because, it's mostly talking about you really until the main punch. And it's 1:35. And, I think I laughed probably 6 times and, laughed out loud and 6 times during that joke. And, that's really, really good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I take that as a high compliment.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Now, thinking about that particular joke, did you write it pretty much the way it is the first time, or how long did it take you to get it to where it was on the album?
That's funny. It's pretty close to like when I first told it, except I kept adding to it. So that joke was maybe one setup, one punchline, when I first started. And then as I did it, I would just start I would maybe add something to it. Once you get a little more comfortable on stage, you can kind of oh, I had this other idea, or sometimes off the cuff, you just slip another punchline out that you don't even realize it. You just say it and it gets a bigger laugh, and then you keep building on it. And then there was another line that actually another comic I was opening for was like, oh, I like that joke. You should say this instead of that or whatever. And I kept that, and because I did it that night, I remember it, and I got an applause, which wasn't something I was like, oh wow, this is super funny, and it's also the funniest part of the bit. I didn't even think of. This guy just was like, we're at the bar after the show, and he's like, oh, you ever think about saying this? And so I kept that, and then I'd say over the course of a few years, it just kind of turned into what I recorded,
Yeah, and the delivery of the last part of that was what really got me, because you didn't you didn't go into the guy's voice too much.
Yeah.
You're almost pragmatic about it. It was just like, okay, yeah, he said this, and
Okay.
and you didn't make a big deal about it, but it was almost one of those throwaway lines that is funnier than the punch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I loved about it. And
Awesome.
yeah, it just, I, every time I listen to it, I laugh. I love it.
Hmm.
And Second Bachelor Party, the way you approach that.
That's my, it's, and I've done it a couple times. Like last weekend I was doing some shows and I did it and I like kind of like riffed a new line and I was like, shoot, could have had that on the album. But the way that joke is maybe less than a year old, because that actually happened. I actually went to a second bachelor party last summer or a summer ago or whatever. And it was just funny because we were just joking about we're just joking around about it. And all these guys who aren't even comedians, they're just friends of mine. And it made me laugh. And so I tried it one night and I was like, oh, that one I really like.
Yeah, that's a definite keeper because I've never heard a joke about a second bachelor party. And the approach is just great. I loved it.
Yeah, it's a unique experience. That's just, to me, that's a huge sign of growing up, being I mean, for what it's worth, your listeners and viewers, I'm 30. So like a lot of my materials, just at least right now, is just about some of these eye-opening moments I'm having about just about life in general.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, man, I was at your first one,
It's funny. I'm doing another episode after yours, and I think when we do Is This Anything, I think I'm going to give you both jokes because I've got one about getting older and I want to see what you think about it. Because that one's brand new. The one I'm bringing that I was going to bring is one that I've done a few times and just sucked, and I rewrote it. And I want to see if it's any better. But that's what I'm thinking. But I don't want to jump the gun here, but I listen to Sirius XM a lot because I drive a lot, and I hear a lot of comedians on the various channels because I flip through like Raw Dog, JFL, the one that
Laugh USA, Popular, all those channels.
But I run through all of them and I hear comedians I hear bits that are not as funny as the two I talked about on the record, on your album. So how do you even know how to go to Sirius XM and say, hey, I've got this album. Do you want to check it out?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just on the phone yesterday with somebody who's going to help me submit. Basically, the easiest way to even submit your stuff is to be affiliated with a record label. And there's a lot of comedy record labels. You have a few choices that are, especially like people at my level that will work with you, and they have a relationship with Sirius. So when they put something out, they can send it along and hopefully your stuff gets on the air, because it's also like a great revenue stream for comedians,
right?
Would make a huge difference in like my life. I could definitely use the extra income.
Yeah.
But, so I actually self-released this all on my own. I just put it out. I'm just on my own. And then I was talking to a friend about submitting it as an independent, just do my own thing. And I just heard lately, because there's like a lot going on with, I guess, licensing rights. There's this whole thing. You can look it up, but it's between comedians and Spotify pretty much who want basically more money per play. And it kind of like ruined I don't want to say ruined everything, but it definitely like changed their process for submissions. So from what I understand, it's harder to get your stuff listened to as an independent because they don't know, like if you're affiliated with a label who basically isn't part of all of that conversation, you at least have a good chance of getting listened to. Hopefully it gets on the air though. But that's definitely a huge part of why I put this out, is because I would love for it to be on Sirius, kind of expose you to a new audience. And it's like, it's a little feather in the cap as a comic, know, because if you're not a comedian who's on Netflix and no one's really asking, like no one's hurting for a new, like a special from me, you know what I mean? Like no one's really like asking for it. So you got to do it all yourself. So you got to put it out and, hopefully people like it. And then you can submit it through Sirius as opposed to like someone who's just got an opportunity to produce a Netflix special,
Right. And that's got to be hard to make that decision, because if you go with a record company, you're more likely to get on, but then they own so much of your stuff that you don't get paid as much. And then if for some reason you do blow up and you end up on Netflix, then you're still paying the record company for that record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a gamble. A lot of labels now, because this stuff has gotten, I guess, easier to produce. It's not like I did this with a Zoom recorder and 5 microphones. So it's pretty easy to get something done, like get something made at this level. But the label, I think now, because I even for a while wanted to start my own label, but it's a lot of work, and it's getting the right comedians and people to, I don't know, it's a full-time job, really.
Right.
So I never really did it. So I started helping other comics just make their own stuff, and then I think a lot of labels now, newer labels, are comic friendly, and they understand. Some of them are even run by comedians, so they understand what it's like to be a comedian who's like, I don't know, sign this paperwork, and then will I ever get, you know what I mean? Like it's a thing, because this is like, it took me a long time to even get these jokes, or to get comfortable enough to record these jokes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's very important to me, as it is other comedians, their jokes and their work, and trying to at least maximize the potential earning. Because then it comes down to like, sure, if I could get this on myself and I make 100% of the money, let's say it plays all the time and I'm making like good money, but maybe it'll play for a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you got 12 labels that you're competing with, and they have 5 new releases. They're going to prioritize theirs over yours. So, does it have longevity if you're not with a label too? So that's also something you want to consider, I think. But who knows? Because I know people who have done both and have been very successful at it. And there's also, I know people who submit their stuff and who are very funny, and I think they're great. And I've listened to their stuff and I'm like, this sounds great. It's the sound quality is great. The jokes are good. And then Sirius said no to all of it. They didn't even take one track. So it's like, there's no shortage of comedians nowadays. So, there's only so much air.
I wonder if we did a social media petitioning campaign and just blasted the fuck out of them. If
do they take call-ins? Can you request this?
I know one show that has a friend of mine on it that he's on there, I think, once a month, that I could call in, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Fugelsang.
Which station is it on? Do you know? I can look it up later.
I think it's one of the talk stations. It may be a political one. I don't.
Oh, I see. So it's not on the comedy station.
Yeah,
okay.
And it may be comedy. I don't remember, but my friend John Poveromo's on it with him at least once a month, I think. And I know they air late night, but I would definitely call in, because you've got some tracks here that, like I said, are better than a lot of the things I've heard.
Well, if I ever get the chance to talk to someone, I'll be like, Scott Curtis said, you got to play this.
Behind the Bitch, like, that podcast that nobody knows about. You
got a lot of followers. Either you're good. I would assume this. I was excited that you asked me to do this. I was like, wow, this guy. And you had a lot of great guests. I was looking at your episodes. I was like, man, all right. Yeah, I think I'm funny enough to talk to for an hour, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I definitely, some people I badger, and some
you got to be like that though.
Yeah, and some people just come on, and The thing is I always have a reason I want to talk to somebody, so I'm not going to reach out.
Sure.
I probably wouldn't have reached out to you if you didn't release an album, just because something has to catch my attention, and then I write your name down, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get in contact with this person, and that, like I said at the beginning, 10 people. I thought, okay, because I've been getting shot down so often lately, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 10 in a 2-day period and see what happens. And
well, you know what's funny is because I think when I got your message, I didn't know, or at least at the time we weren't friends on Facebook or something like that. And so your messages went to my spam folder on Facebook. And
so I'm just hitting spam everywhere.
So, I mean, I wouldn't always take it personal, because I also noticed you'd asked me years ago, maybe 3 years ago or something.
Yeah, when I first started. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even see it. And I'm like, wow, God probably thinks I'm a huge jerk, you know? Like, I'm like big time in your podcast. And really, I just didn't know. It's not like I didn't have all the free time in the world in 2020 to be on any podcast, but.
And I'm actually really thick-skinned about it most of the time.
Sure,
it's just lately, you know, it's just been just a fucking slog. It's just.
Well, yeah, no, it's hard to add. So, I mean, not to jump ahead, but you mentioned my podcast. If you want me to wait and talk about this until late, I don't know. I don't want to throw you off.
Yeah, jump it in.
The podcast I do now is just me kind of rambling for 25-ish minutes every week, and sometimes I'll have a friend on the show, like another comic or something, who might have a funny take on some sort of current event or news story or something. And before that, I did a podcast just called One Crazy Story, where I would have comics on and they would tell me a crazy story, something you would tell at a party, and that was so much fun because people would tell me, and the other cool thing is I didn't have to have comedians on. I had personal friends just from like high school who had a good story,
right?
And they would agree to do it, and then that was so much fun. And I kind of, getting back to like what it's like asking people to do your podcast, it's hard when I ran out of like favors, you know what I mean? Where it's like, Nate, I already told you a story and I don't want to do it again. Or like, just it got to the point where I felt like I was bothering people, which I guess kind of ties into the album name, is like, that's kind of how I feel about just like, hey, can you do it's fun. I promise it's fun. And I actually had like enough listeners to look forward to doing it every week, where I'm like, wow, enough people are listening to this. I wasn't like, I wasn't making money off of it or anything, but I had more listeners than I did people at live shows.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? This seems worth my time. And I liked it. I like funny stories, and the whole production of aspect of things are fun. So that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now, is because I don't want to rely on, a guest, cancel the day before or something. And then it's like, great, now I'm, behind, it's also just a bummer when that happens. You're like, man, then you're not motivated. I don't know. It's just a snowball effect with me. So I was like, I'm going to do this by myself, and then have the option to have a guest is just, it works more for my, just how my brain works.
Yeah. And I really like the way you do it. And the funny thing is this was, I think, towards the end of the pandemic. So I was trying to do social media stuff, and I'm 58. So it's not, it doesn't come as easy to me. So I did a TikTok channel that was like weird news. And my problem was I couldn't find enough weird news.
Well, I'm noticing that this is because when I first started, it's kind of an evolving thing, right? Because it's like I got enough. It's like the same thing where it's like I have enough listeners. I don't feel crazy doing this. You know what I mean? It's enough that I know somebody is looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So it gives me enough motivation to make the thing. I also enjoy it, but I also wanted to get better at just being solo on the mic. That's just like a skill set that I envy of other comedians and radio people, podcasters, whatever it is. And it started as like, okay, I'm going to talk about like current events, like what happened this week. And then you realize most of the world sucks. So it's like, this is just depressing now. I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's hard to make jokes about like some of the stuff that happens. And some of it's like obvious Like, why isn't he talking about this
Mhm.
big story, the Ukraine war? It's like, I don't have anything. No one wants to hear what I think about that. So I was like, how do I do this with being a little more fun and like having more fun with it and talking about, I would rather talk about, the guy who, whatever, what was the, like, can't remember what I had on the last episode, but just like stupid news stories, shit that happens that you're like, wow, like, and it's just lighthearted and fun. I would rather talk about stuff like that than, whatever political situation is going on or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I kind of started doing the weird news stuff, and I know there's other podcasts that do it, but I don't know. They usually have guests on, and there's co-hosts and stuff. So I'm trying to do it differently, and I think my sources are a little different. I also don't want to be the guy doing the same story every week.
Right.
Because then I start to look like a hack, and I don't want to be that guy. So I usually open up the show for 10 minutes and I talk about what happened to like what I did this weekend.
Yeah.
And usually try to find like something funny to talk about there, like some personal story. And then after that, I guess monologue portion, I talk about some random silly news story.
Yeah. And I really like the story about the baseball fundraiser.
Oh yeah.
The chips. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I wish I had filmed that set, getting back to recording in the day and age of YouTube clips and Instagram reels and TikTok without burning material. Cause now I'm working on a bunch of new stuff. And I don't want to post it yet. Cause like, I would say it's not like finished or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not at a place where I want to put it out yet. And I have all this other backlog stuff from the album cause I also filmed it. So I'm sitting on all this stuff that I have like a plan for releasing it. And that show I did, it's like in a little banquet hall comedy club that's in my home state of Michigan. And it's like one of the first comedy clubs that ever booked me. And they do a lot of fundraiser shows. And I was like, should I film this? I brought my camera. And then, you're looking at the crowd and it was a good turnout. It was a fundraiser for a local baseball team, which these shows are always... I find that they're always usually pretty fun, but sometimes they can be weird because it's like all the kids' parents and, if usually you bring people, everybody in the room knows each other. So if you embarrass one person and you embarrass the wrong person, it can throw off the whole mood of the room. It's like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you don't know the dynamics there. So like sometimes they can be a little rough, but oftentimes they're really fun. And they do like raffles. So they have like, prizes along the back table, and it's a silent auction. You put your tickets in and hopefully you get picked. And there was a lot of cool stuff like Detroit Tigers tickets or whatever whatever it is. And like cool stuff that you would actually want. And then I noticed, and I didn't even think about it. I just, in the back of my head, I was looking at the prizes while the opener was on stage, and I'm looking at the table and I noticed just a laundry basket full of like snacks. It looks like stuff that you would just get out of your pantry, like a bag of potato chips and, Slim Jims and stuff like that. And I was like, man, what an odd thing to like raffle off, you know? And I was doing the show and like halfway through my set, and it's going well. Like everybody's having fun. We're like really moving. And then like I did a joke and it just kind of fell flat. And also I decided to not record this because I was looking at the crowd like, this probably isn't going to be anything crazy. I'm working on this new stuff. And, I just knew what I was going to do. So I was like, I don't need to film this. And then a joke kind of bombed, and I made a comment about, how they didn't lie. I commented on them not liking it. I was like, man, I really lost you with this one. And I realized like half the room is like, probably the parent of the kid begged them to come to the show. Like, you sold me a raffle ticket. I'm just trying to support my nephew's team or whatever. Like that's the kind of energy I was getting. Yeah. And I called that out and I got a big laugh, and I was like, oh man, I must be onto something here. And I said, some of these people are probably just here to see if they'll win this laundry basket full of potato chips. I just said that something along the lines of that, and it like erupted. Like it was the funniest thing. I couldn't even follow it. And then it was like, and then it just turned into this whole riff on like, who the hell would even like, it's literally like somebody forgot they were supposed to supply a an item for the auction, and they just stopped it. They had a basket in their car, and they just stopped at a 7-Eleven on the way to the show. And it was the funniest thing I said all night. And I'm like, this is why you got to film every set, you know? Because then after the fact, I was like, man, that would have been so funny. It was just a genuine funny thing that happened in the moment and it would translate to somebody who wasn't in the room. It wasn't something that you had to be there.
Most of us have clothes that we've loved for years, maybe even decades, but it's harder than ever to find clothes that will stand the test of time. If you're looking for more pieces designed to last, you can't go wrong with American Giant. From hoodies and t-shirts to denim and more, they've got everything you need to build a wardrobe that you'll be proud of for years to come. All American Giant clothing is created with a commitment to doing things better. From the materials they use down to the last stitch in every piece. And everything is made right here in America, in partnership with people and communities. Because keeping things local ensures the kind of quality you'll appreciate as soon as you receive your order. Discover the American Giant difference today. Shop wardrobe essentials that last a lifetime at american-giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code LT23 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com. Promo code LT23.
I don't know. Yeah. So that was that story so that's the kind of stuff I try to talk about on the opening of the podcast. It's like, you'll never believe the shit that happened to me So, and sometimes I have a boring ass life.
Yeah. So, the funny thing about that story is one of the things that got me thinking is when did you feel comfortable enough that you could be in the moment to do something like that? Because I know that's a process because you're so focused on your set and your material and stuff like that. You don't even know what's going on around you when you start. What was it that made you so that you could be in the moment like that?
Man, I don't really know if there's a specific moment that I learned. I think it just comes with doing anything enough. Like, they say 10,000 hours or anything, things. It's like podcasting, even that, like how are you comfortable even talking on the microphone and stuff like that. So I think once you do it a certain amount of times, you eventually get comfortable with yourself in whatever way that is. There are people who don't like to do that. And I don't always enjoy talking to the crowd, but you can just kind of feel that they were like open to it and they were fun and like they would have, you know what I mean? They would go along with it. I think that just comes with doing it for as much as you can until one day it's like, oh, I can't believe that worked. Like it'll work enough where you have the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And you'll feel comfortable. And I think at some point I just got to like, well, I mean, I don't really care. We're at this baseball fundraiser. Nobody's going to remember this show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not on the Tonight Show. It doesn't, like if it sucks, it sucks. I mean, I want it to go well, but you just got to be comfortable with it potentially not going well because it's not always going to go well, Yeah. And the moment you can like be okay with that, I think you're more comfortable. Like you can relax a little bit.
Right.
And I think it helps even the jokes, like the jokes that you plan to tell, like your material. I think it also comes through there where like if the crowd knows if they trust you, which has a lot to do with like the confidence of like, no, I know these jokes will work. I'm going to try this new thing, but if it doesn't go well, then okay, I'll go back to this other stuff that works. I'll get them back and then I'll try another new thing. Like it's a balance, I think.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get comfortable because in general, I'm not. And that's another thing that doing the podcast has helped with is like just talking in your room alone and getting comfortable and doing, if you can do so in a way that keeps even one person hooked. And, to me, that's a great skill to have. And it translates to the stage.
Yeah.
Because then I can take an idea and just kind of roll with it. And that's kind of what happened that night where I was just
right.
Like, well, you didn't like my joke. Well, I'm going to make fun of whoever just thought it would be appropriate or like at all exciting to share, the worst possible. And people put their tickets in there, which blew my mind. You don't want the Tigers tickets? I would just put all the tickets, I don't know, like something fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a baseball team fundraiser. So they got like the Tigers to donate some tickets or something for next season. And I was like, wow, you didn't even want that? You're clearly baseball fans. That'd be like the hot prize, I would think. But
yeah.
sure enough, somebody did. And they came up to me after, the guy that won, and he's like showing it off and stuff. It's silly. But those are the moments. Those are my favorite parts of those shows, because usually something comes from it. Maybe sometimes a moment will happen with the crowd where you can add it to the joke.
Right.
That was just kind of like a thing that happened. But sometimes you can be like, well, how somebody responds to a joke. You could have a conversation on stage with somebody, and then that becomes part of the bit later on.
It's funny. I'm doing another podcast. It's just me solo talking about podcasting. And it's so much different than this. And right now I don't like it because I have to fill that space. And it's not even me doing jokes. It's a serious podcast. And I'm really struggling with it, because when I'm talking to somebody, I'm fine. But when I have to fill that space myself, I haven't done an episode longer than 15 minutes, me talking.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I really like Bill Burr's like a prime example of someone who can just, ramble for an hour, but the whole time you're like interested in what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He could be talking about, walking, just his walk down the street.
Yeah.
Like I went for a walk and this happened, and it might not be anything interesting when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Like, why is this interesting? But him telling that story is just he has a way of talking that keeps you interested, And I was like, that is like, if I can do that, that's just something I like kind of want to be able to do. And then, you think about it, if you're doing stand up, the whole goal is to be able to do an hour on stage, right? Like, and that's like prepped, planned material that you work on. But if you can open up the mic and have it be good, that's the other thing, is like a lot of people do solo podcasts, but that's why mine's short, is because I don't want to like drag it out for an hour. That would be awful.
Yeah.
I would rather have like a really good, interesting 20-minute podcast of just me talking about my weekend than, some sad, but, I think it's just, asking someone to listen to me for more than 25 minutes, I think is a lot, especially if you don't know who I am,
Yeah.
Cause it's kind of like the album where like, it's going to be your first impression of me as a performer, as a comedian, and you want it to be good.
Right.
So, it's short and tight. And the other thing about it is, and I do a lot of editing too. So like I'll tell that story about that show I did with the fundraiser, and maybe that's like 6 minutes. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I'm out of stuff. So I pause it, I cut it, and then I pick up and, go to the next thought. So there's no rambling, or I try to at least keep it focused on the subject. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't want to be like, all right, so what else is going on? I don't want to do all that.
Right.
I just cut it right there. I take out the you know what I mean? I don't want to give people a chance to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, stay with me. This is going to sound like one big, long planned show.
Yeah.
And no one seems to notice. So, and I think that's just part of podcasting. I don't like, my least favorite podcasts are, because I'm also like a fan of, like, I listen to a ton and types of podcasts too, not even just comedians, but the ones that you can tell they put no thought into what the listening experience is going to be like. So that's why I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to really try and make this at least interesting to somebody.
Right. Yeah, you do. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, and I do too, you get to be a little bit of a snob, and the ones that, the audio is terrible, or you can just tell that there's, 5 minutes of rambling before you get to the meat. And you can really tell the ones that are putting the effort into it and the ones that aren't.
Yep.
As far as, so you've been doing this a long time, what would you say is the best and worst advice you've got coming up?
I'm trying to think of any bad advice, because good advice would just be, and this, I don't know if this is just redundant, if what other comics tell you, but the only way you're really going to learn how to do it is to do it, and these days it's pretty easy to get up somewhere, whether it's like your local, so many places have open mics, most towns have them now, because but I would say just try it. If you ever want to try it, just give it a shot, and Maybe it'll go awful, but at least
Yeah.
But just keep going is kind of, because the amount of times I thought, man, maybe I shouldn't be doing, maybe I should go do something else. Maybe I should find like a different career path or something. But I just love doing it. Anyone who loves doing comedy isn't really going to stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people I've had this conversation with where, like, I'm still young. I can like make some money. I maybe get like a little 401k going. I got time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but I'm like, no, I shouldn't. I should keep doing this. Something keeps me going. And I don't know what it is, but I often think about every moment. I was like, maybe I just shouldn't do this anymore. It's kind of like, driving how far for how little money, like just the stupid I take. And I think like, man, if every time I thought about quitting, I quit, I never would have gotten that next opportunity that kept me going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I put out this album. Had I quit, every other, I never would have been able to do this. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like just having a goal, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keep going. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you really want to quit, you should quit. But I mean, but I don't know. To keep trying it, something good's going to happen, whether it's you think of a new joke, a funny joke, just to keep getting on stage, that's like the best and truest advice, to give somebody.
Yeah.
And then the worst, nothing sticks out. I mean, I've seen people just make poor decisions and they didn't know they were giving me advice. If anything, it was just like watching other people make bad decisions. It's like, okay, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Whether it's how you conduct yourself at the comedy club, how you talk to the wait staff, how much you tip the wait staff, how you know what I mean? Things like that, how you act with the crowd after, or you stuff like that, like just, and what to do on just how to talk to other comedians and just be at least, pleasant to work with,
Yeah.
But like stuff like that, I always found valuable, watching somebody just either not tip or like the wait staff. And then, it gets back to the booker at some point.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just how to conduct yourself. But I think that kind of advice applies in any career path, really. Like, just don't be a dick, Yeah. That's but yeah, I don't know. No specific bad advice sticks out.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about tipping and stuff like that. I'm in Huntsville, Alabama now, and we just lost an open mic, and it was mostly because it was all comedians there. Usually there might be one or two tables of people who aren't comedians, and they get a water and they wouldn't tip. And I understand, because if I was to do 5 a week and I drink 2 beers every night, and I tip and I always tip like 50% on a beer. So if I tip only 20%, then all of a sudden in a month, that's a car payment. And so,
totally.
So I understand where the comics are coming from, but the guy who runs some of the mics here said, get your water and give the bartender $1, and just so they know that you're there and you appreciate the fact that they're running a mic there. And
the fact that they're even showing up, because like you can't have the open mic without the venue, right? So like, as much as it might be hard to like, part with that money, especially if you're like a struggling comedian, I mean, it's hard, coming up. I don't even carry cash. I had to, the club I was at last weekend, the bartender, and it's like a club. I mean, I've been going there for years. So like, they know, like when you walk in, they actually knew my name. They're like, hey, Nate, how's it going? Like, it's that kind of place. And I didn't have cash, and I was like, shit, I don't want to know. I just made him, I was like, what's your Venmo? Like because I was like, I'm tipping you because I know, I value their, they're showing up. So that's good. You need the bartender, you need the comedy club or the bar, you know what I mean? They're the reason you even get to put on a show.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
At least at my level, no one's showing up for.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly selling tickets.
Yeah, and I think especially in open mic land, you get a little complacent and you think, oh, this is always going to be here, so I'm just going to get my water and go on. But they notice the bartender is there. It's a Wednesday night and they need to get paid. And so, I
gotta be worth their time.
Yeah. So I think they stopped the open mic and they're doing bingo or something like that. So, it's
it's so funny. It's so funny how like there's clubs now they'll do other stuff on their off nights. Cause especially if you're a full-time comedy club, you're only open maybe Wednesday to Saturday.
Yeah.
You're busy. That's when you're doing shows, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, most places, but they have like 3 or 4 days off during the week. They want to use the venue. They have the space, the whole full bar. It's like, why not try another event? Maybe they'll bring in like, a TikTok comedian or something.
Yeah.
And they'll put them up on a Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll sell the place out and they make tons of money off the bar. So it's great for business, as long as it's not ruining the Thursday, the normal stand-up stuff. But do whatever gimmicky stuff you want to do on the off nights.
Yeah.
But let's say it's bingo. There's a club near where I'm from. They're a new club. They've only been open a few years, and then they also got through the pandemic and all this stuff. So like any business, they're like, anything we can get these, this place sold out.
Mm-hmm.
And the comedy, it's slowly building, right? It's getting better and better every time I go back. And so they're really building something, and they're smart. They know it's going to be a long game, so they kind of like planned for, potential loss, likely loss. I mean, I don't know their numbers, but you can tell it's growing. The business is growing, but they would do like drag queen bingo on like Sunday or drag brunch or something. And it's sold out. I'm not kidding, in like a half hour.
Oh,
online.
I bet. Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But the thing is, it's 400 seats or whatever the capacity is. They sell a ticket for each seat. They're making money off the bar. They bring in food,
Yeah.
So I'm like, whatever keeps the lights on, just don't do that on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Let comedians, don't become a brunch spot. I want to keep it a comedy club. But hey, if you got to do that on the off nights, be my guest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's interesting though, because they're like, it's also like, like Nate, yeah, how's the show looking this weekend? Not too many, maybe it's half full or something. You're like, all right, we'll make it work. We'll do the show. We'll have fun. And then it's like, wow, drag queen brunch just sold out in 30 minutes. And you're like, man, because all those people know about the comedy club.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They know how to get there for brunch. I'm like, why don't you come out for the comedy? But hey, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird business, a weird dynamic. Yeah. It's funny what's popular now and what may be popular in a year from now. So this has been fun, but I want to get to the is this anything, because I've got at least one I'm going to do. I may only do one. I may save the other one for Ben, the other guy I'm talking to. But this is where we each bring a joke or a premise to the table that we're working on. We think might be something. It bombed before. We want to make it good, and we just give each other notes. So since you're the guest, you get to choose if I go first or if you go first.
Okay. I'll let you go first. Let's see.
Okay. Let me find it. So this is just to set this one up. I do a lot of boomer style stuff because I'm at the tail end of the boomer era, and this is one I've done a couple times, and I think the premise is solid, but I've never been able to make it funny. So this one I rewrote this morning, and I'm just going to do it the way I wrote it. So I'm totally paranoid about my phone battery going dead, and I don't know why. I went over 30 years without one, and I don't remember wishing I'd be able to be found anywhere by anyone who has my phone number and yet not be able to make a call from my own house because of trees. So one thing I don't understand is how I can walk from the charger to my car and I'm at 90% charge. And then I look at my phone and I see I've got 15 robocalls. I guess that'll drain it, won't it? When I get to 70%, all I'm doing is looking for outlets. I've got a 6-foot charging cord wrapped around my ankle, ready to go, and I just need the juice, baby. And when it gets to 30%, I'm just going to get a new one. I go to the T-Mobile store, and when they ask what kind of phone I want, I just say fully charged. End of joke.
Funny. Yeah, no, I like that. No, there's something to that, because I think it's also not only I mean, you kind of described it as like a boomery take, but also like, I think that's something we all deal with. I mean, I'm 100% addicted to my phone. So it is always charged. And if it's not 100%, I keep it charged. So I guess that's the difference there is like, you're struggling to keep it charged, whereas it's never getting below 100. You know what I mean? Like it's so, but no, that's something totally, I think that is, that whole premise is great.
Yeah. Do you think I should make it shorter? Should I put more tags? Should there be less tags? I just don't know what to do with it.
I think a little shorter. Based on if exactly what you read is how you say it on stage, I would maybe shorten it a little bit.
Yeah, it was twice as long.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it would also be different to see it in front of a crowd, you know. But I think the payoff is funny. Like I like that. You know, like what kind of phone do you want fully charged? That's, you know, and like the idea of, you know, I guess it is. I don't know the rest of your act or how you do, but like the whole like boomer, like it was. Phone's never charged. Like this is something my dad would do, where it's like, you know, can never find his charger, can never find his phone, can never, you know what I mean? I'll just get a new one. You know? So no, I like that. No, I think a little shorter, if you're going based on exactly what you read.
Yeah. I wonder if I could go from, because I think the fact that people can find me wherever I'm at, and yet I can't make a call when I want to. I think that has legs, but I could jump right to the 30%. So when it gets to 30%, I'm going to the T-Mobile store and getting a new phone. Because the other two, I don't think really.
Well, also the robocall thing, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Like that really, I mean, I don't know. It might be.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but I don't know if that really drains the battery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might even be able to just cut that part. Or think of a different, you know, why else would maybe a funnier reason of why you know what I mean? Why it's the battery's being drained all the time.
Yeah. And I've never heard a phone battery joke. And the reason why this comes up is because my son, who's named Nate, who turns 30 this year, his phone is always like at 15%. And it drives me absolutely crazy, and he doesn't care.
Yeah, well, see, maybe so. If we're the same age, maybe I'm just crazy. Like, because I'm always like my phone is always at a 90 or more for sure.
Yeah,
you know? And just because I'm paranoid of it dying.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the battery's fault. I think it's just me being like, nope, not even gonna risk it. You know.
Well, I know both my son and my daughter, their phones they're always like, oh shit, my phone's going to die. Well, good. Funny. Yeah. I just feel like the premise is there. I just say what?
I love that fully charged. That's funny.
Yeah.
Like when you want a new one.
Yeah. So I just need to get to that. And then if I can find more to add on to it, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
You definitely got something there.
Okay, good. So what do you got for me?
So, okay, I've never even tried this on stage, and I want to, like, maybe I'll try it this weekend just because it makes me laugh. And I find that if it makes you laugh, you should at least give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad is in this, the older he gets, the more he's interested in like our ancestry and like, so he's been like doing a lot of digging, you know, like with things like 23andMe and stuff like that, making it easier than ever. And you can really find out a lot about your family's past, right? Like where, you know, when did our family get to the United States? You know, because both of his parents are from families who eventually came over here from different countries or whatever. So he's gone back and he's like got all these old photos and he's doing all this interesting like research about our family. And in my head, like this is, so it got me thinking like, okay, like don't go back too far. You know, I'm very white and very German last name, Armbruster, you know, like, you know, because he thinks it's interesting and I think it's interesting, but I'm also like, I don't want to know too much because, you know, the farther you go back, the more likely it's going to be bad. You know what I mean? Like, so this is where this is like the whole, I mean, this is just like it's like I said, I've never even tried this yet. So I don't even know if it's funny, but that whole thing where I'm just like, don't go too far back, because we're very German and very white. And then also our last name, so Armbruster, it literally means and I'm reading this off I looked it up off of Ancestry. It's on Ancestry.com as Armbruster is the occupational name for a soldier armed with a crossbow or a maker of crossbows from an ancient derivative of Armbrust, which means crossbow, right?
Wow.
That's a pretty interesting, like, badass last name, and it's wasted on me. You know what I mean? Like, my ancestors would, if they met me, they'd be like, you're like, what happened to us? Like this, first of all, you do comedy, you're very sensitive, you know what I mean? Like, you could just roast the hell out of me. Like, it's just, it doesn't work with my everything about me,
Yeah.
Like Armbruster, it's technically a really badass last name, but it's just, there's nothing badass about me at all. Like, so that's the whole joke there, right? And then it gets like, or the whole idea, then that's basically what I want to try. And then it also comes down to like Armbruster, because it's like a somewhat unique last name. It's not very common. But the amount of people that like to bring it up, like after a show, I can't tell you how many times someone's like, oh my God, do you know Cindy? Are you related to Cindy Armbruster in Cincinnati? And I'm like, never, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, but you just get I've had so many conversations like that, like, oh, wow, you have a unique last name. You must know the other person, and then you find out it's actually not that unique. Because there's like a lot of other people, like, it's not as unique as I thought with the amount of people that are like, wow, I've never met another Armbruster. And then someone, so the dumb conversations that come along with it make me laugh.
Yeah.
So this is just the whole bit that this is the idea. I wouldn't call that a joke finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you've got two really good tags there between the uncommon last name and the crossbow. And I don't know if you can go to, the only thing I ever shot was Jägermeister or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, you think about, how rugged a crossbow is, and then you could go into everything that's not rugged about you,
Right. Like, crossbow, I don't even cross the street without a stoplight or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like just, I know what you're saying. No, I like that.
Yeah. The crossbow really came out to me, and the unique last name does too, because I mean, Curtis isn't that unique, but I get the same thing. It's always, Joe Curtis from Minnesota. Well, no.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know where you could go with that, maybe just go totally outlandish and like, he killed my mom.
Oh yeah. We don't talk to him anymore. Not since he did that thing to that kid.
Yeah.
Like for something, real dark.
Yeah.
Like just go real dark with it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Because they obviously know them. So if you reveal a secret about them, it's
do you know Joe Curtis? Oh, that asshole.
Yeah.
Oh. He's alive.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Did he get over the heroin addiction?
Yeah. Is he still addicted to coke? No, I think there's something there. I got to figure it out. This is currently a joke. Like, it's currently an idea that keeps popping into my head. You know what I mean? So, because like I would like to think, I got a note in my phone in my notes app that's like 1 million pages long of just crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like, some that I think it's funny or a potential joke idea. To someone out of context. Like, if I ever die, throw my phone in a river, okay? Because like I gotta. I gotta be able to explain some of these thoughts that pop into my head. But I go through this app all the time, and I'm like, you know what? There's no excuse to not have a new joke this weekend. Let's try something new, So I go through the app, and this one, I don't see it written. I haven't written it down anywhere. It's just something that pops into my head sometimes. And I'm like, it keeps nudging me to talk about it. And then something will happen. Like I'll talk to my dad. He'll be like, hey, did I ever tell you about your great-great-grandfather? And then and it is interesting. Like some of our family that he's learned a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But it keeps popping into my head. Like, oh my God, I got to try this joke about just our last name. You know? Like, so anyway, so it's something I feel like if it keeps popping into my head, it's got to be worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. So crossbow is just funny by itself. So the word is funny. So being able to play off that's great. And also the name recognition. You've definitely got something there that you could build on that for sure.
You got to think of like a funny family crest. For like we would have to update it, I'll have to find, I got to do some research, but I think it'd be funny to like really like go all in on it. And
we replace the crossbow with kombucha.
Yeah. I like that. Something real like, what would you say? Gen Z like or something real like, I don't even know if that's the right thing to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. Something definitely a weak man would. So, you know what I'm trying to say. Something like a good example of my life. Now
I went from hunting my food to wanting to make sure my digestive system is working right.
We don't make crossbow. Like if an ancestor of mine, like an actual crossbow maker from, however many hundreds of years ago, saw me now, I'd be like, I mean, I'm just taking Metamucil now. Like, I'm much weaker than, I don't even know how to make. Like, I shouldn't have any weapons. I'm an idiot. You know? So, and luckily we don't need crossbows anymore. But still, like, it's funny though. I just think about that. Like, when they were coming up with last names, like Smith is usually like, I would say that's one of the most common last names. Like blacksmith, it's like a verb, back then that was like your occupation. And all of my ancestors probably would be so disappointed to know me, because they were likely doing some badass stuff. And here I am. But so that's the whole premise of something. I'll try it this weekend and see what happens.
You've definitely got something there. And the funny thing is I'm starting to get listeners writing in, giving me tags. So if I get any, I'll send them over to you.
Please do. Tell them I'll credit.
This little bit of the podcast, I've been doing it 3 years. And I just started this like a couple months ago, and it's really like the best part of the podcast now.
It's a great segment. It's a great idea.
And I did it because this dude from Canada said I should. So, there you go.
Great. Comics love talking about Joe. And also like, hey, you help me just say it out loud.
You
know what I mean?
Right.
It's low stakes because I'm having a conversation, It's like, if you don't laugh, I'm not going to like hate myself. But like the idea, like, it's not like trying a joke on stage where like, if the crowd doesn't laugh, like with you, the only feedback I'm getting is your response,
Right. Yeah.
If it's not laughter, you'll probably at least help me figure something out.
Yeah.
And now after this conversation, I at least have the confidence to try it this weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I go back and listen to this and I'm like, okay, I said it like this, and then some of your advice with the tags and stuff. Yeah. So I'll try it this weekend and I'll let you know how it goes.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely do. That's great. Where can folks find you on the internet? And make sure to mention the podcast again, because it's good.
Okay. So my podcast, which also I'm thinking about changing the name, but I don't know when or how. But anyway, it's right at this moment, it's called Weekend Update, and I post an episode every week. I'm behind on this week's, but I'm probably going to edit it after we hang up and post that. But yeah, so I post every week. My album, Sorry to Bother You, is on all of the streaming apps. You can listen to it, whatever, download it. Which the video version, I guess the special will be out on YouTube at some point in the next few weeks. So you'll be able to watch it if that's more your thing. And all that info, I like live on Instagram. I'm on Instagram all the time.
Same.
So that's like my main social media, but I'm on all the apps. Everything is just at Nate Comedy. And yeah, easy to find. I'm on the road a lot. I do a lot of live shows too. So if I'm ever in a town near whoever,
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Well, I tell you, and I'm not just saying this because I listen to a lot of albums, and I do not invite the person to be on my podcast. Yours was really, really good. I mean,
appreciate that.
yeah, even 3 times in, paper or plastic got me every time.
Oh, good. No, that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And folks, you got to listen to it. It's towards the end of the album. Even if you just listen to that track, put it on repeat on YouTube and see if we can get the numbers up there.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
And I think I might start petitioning Sirius XM and see what happens.
Please do.
Yeah.
No, let's get some. Let's do it. Let's
get some heat.
Buzz going.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for asking me. This was fun.
America needs reliability, roads to keep supplies moving, energy to power every moment. And we need that reliability now. Hundreds of new infrastructure projects are awaiting government approval. Projects that will supply thousands of jobs and improve American lives. But new red tape from the White House could create years of backlog, or worse, project cancellations. Ohio can't wait any longer to build back better. We need progress now. For better roads, more affordable energy, and a reliable supply chain. Help break the gridlock. Call Senator Brown, 202-224-2315. And tell our senator we need him to cut the red tape and get Ohio moving again. 202-224-2315. Paid for by the Coalition for American Jobs.
It's not easy being the one everyone counts on to keep your operation running, no matter the weather or supply chain hiccup. But we get you, Raymond in Buffalo, Maria in Miami, and Jules in Troy. Taking control of everything that's under your control. At Grainger, we're here for you with high-quality supplies for every industry, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to help. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.